I would love to hurt him and finish him and him out.
How was he punching? Was it hurting you?
Like a thunder. He punches like a mule kick. Unbelievable. Excuse my French, please. Oh, my God.
It's time!
You're listening to the Cage Nation TV Prizefight Podcast. Coming to you from the Coastal Cameron Studios in Wilmington, North Carolina.
Are you ready?
Here's your host, the big fella, Albert Cameron.
Let's get it on!
Happy 4th of July and welcome to the Prizefight Podcast. I'm your host, the big fella, Mr. Albert Miller, and a happy Independence Day. From all of us to all of you, today on the Prizefight Podcast, we are counting down King of the Cage Short Range. The event is happening at the Meadows Casino in Washington, Pennsylvania. Tickets available right now at www.kingofthecage.com. Those orders are being fulfilled by Ticketmaster. If that's not cool enough, if MMA coming back to Pittsburgh is not cool enough, this bout will be televised on MAV TV, reaching millions of homes. Everyone in the Pittsburgh area is fanatical about their sports. Why not their combat sports too? So that's going to be reaching millions of homes. Just so you know, if we don't talk about a fighter, it's not because we don't like them or because we don't think that they deserve being talked about. We just don't know enough. And the best way to fix that is to actually be in attendance at the Meadows Casino this Saturday in Washington, Pennsylvania. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking about Marquis Johnson versus Chris Kenny, as well as other bouts on King of the Cage Short Range. Don't go nowhere, it's the Prizefight Podcast. Hey everyone, while we're taking a break, we just want to remind you that right now we are looking for new people to join the Cage Nation TV roster of creators. We're looking for creators who have a fight circuit close to home, who have a sincere passion for combat sports, and would like to help us bring new territories to the forefront of our coverage. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com/opportunity/pioneer or send us an email at cagenationtv@gmail.com. This Saturday in Washington, Pennsylvania, King of the Cage returns to the Meadows Casino for King of the Cage Short Range. And I'm not going to lie, friends, I'm excited about it. Even in North Carolina, I'm excited about it. I'll tell you why. I have a real soft spot for King of the Cage. I love King of the Cage. In fact, I would go as far as to say, without King of the Cage, I can't tell you that I'd be as into mixed martial arts as I am. And I'll explain why. I've always followed an MMA. Always followed it. Ever since I was a young kid, renting UFC videos from the Videos Unlimited, which just found out had closed down. That's my issue. Story for another day. I've always watched it. And then as The Ultimate Fighter comes out, suddenly, there's a whole another universe of mixed martial arts that's opened up, and it's awesome. There's mainstream. It's more accessible. I don't have to run down to the video store to get a UFC tape. I can watch it on TV now. Things are starting to improve. After The Ultimate Fighter, that's where I started picking up that I can find out where these guys are coming from. I'm at the Suncoast video store, the Suncoast Motion Picture Company in the Logan Valley Mall, and I have in my hands King of the Cage, The Evolution of Combat. It's a 10-event set on 5 DVDs. It was $20. And King of the Cage events are not any short ordeal. So I'm getting easily over 100 fights. Easily. And I picked up this video set because I recognize names on the back. And as I'm sitting down to watch King of the Cage, I'm realizing, 1, it's awesome. 2, good fights. 3, there's a lot of history ingrained in King of the Cage. The fighters that I was seeing fighting on the UFC today had fought a while ago for King of the Cage. And then from there, I just kept buying their DVD sets until ultimately it all ended up on Fight Pass. But because of that, those video sets being available, I had this endearment to King of the Cage. So when KOTC started coming to Pittsburgh, that made me very happy. As we're getting ready to talk about the fights, I just want to let you guys know that Cage Nation TV's preview of King of the Cage Short Range is brought to you by Roblin Photography. For all those special moments that you want to keep forever, whether it be weddings, graduations, sports, triumphs, Roblin is the guy you want to call. Visit www.roblin.org. Again, that is www.roblin.org. See his portfolio for yourself. The man captures magic, without a doubt. What we're going to be the first fight we're going to talk about is Marquis Johnson versus Chris Kenny. According to mixedmartialarts.com and kingofthecage.com, Marquis Johnson versus Chris Kenny is the co-main event. But because I wasn't able to find any information on the main event, it's telling me that Marquis Johnson and Chris Kenny might end up being the main event. And there was a lot of good information here that I just really wanted to talk to you guys about. As always, when we're talking about a fight card is subject to change, boys and girls. The fights we're talking about today, as awesome as they may be, might not happen this weekend. And that's the nature of the fight game. Anyone can tell you. Anything can happen. So, Marquis Johnson, Chris Kenny, what do we know? One, we know that both men are making their debut professional bouts in Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, and we've said this time and time again, number one, Pennsylvania will not allow a mismatch. Number two, debuting pros and amateurs are historically ready to prove themselves in their debut fights. I don't know if it's because something in the water or if this is something they have to prove to themselves in their corner, but whenever fighters in Pennsylvania are making their debuts, it's dynamite. Like, that's just how it is. It's dynamite. Now, coming out of his amateur career, Marquis Johnson is on a 4-fight winning streak. All of those 4 wins have been by stoppage. 2 of those wins did not leave the first minute of the fight. Let's say that again because it bears repeating. Marquis Johnson was able to stop a fight, get a referee to intervene in less than 60 seconds. That sounds like some real blood sport stuff. You know, Ray Jackson, oh my God, that's the fastest I've ever seen. To stop a fighter in the first 60 seconds. Again, remembering Pennsylvania will not allow for mismatch. Marquis Johnson had lightning in his hands. He's got it. Whether it be submissions or knockouts, he's got it. Now, I need to tell you guys that because they're debuting pros, the only information we have to go off of is their amateur careers. And amateur careers for analyzing a pro fight, it's not really that fair. But it's all we got to work with. An amateur career is meant for a fighter to go out and find himself, to find out what he's made of. What are his strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do they need to improve on? What is going to take them to the game? That is exactly what an amateur career is for. So we're going off of amateur information. Now, speaking of an amateur career, Marquis Johnson was fighting in the Ohio Valley promotions. IT Fight Series, Cage Madness, and the Ohio Amateur Division is excruciatingly similar to the Pro Division in Pennsylvania. So with that being said, his amateur career has a lot of pro-style experience coming out of it. When I think of Ohio and their amateur divisions, I think of one fight in particular. I think of Tyler the Daywalker Saltzman taking on Cody No Love Garbrandt. Yeah, that Cody No Love Garbrandt. And both of the guys were amateurs, but they were the main event. For good reason. But they were the main event. That's how Ohio allows them to roll. So Marquis Johnson is coming into this bout with a lot of pro-style experience. And I'm going to guess that's why they're the co-main. Because they were able to make that happen. And actually, if you're a matchmaker in that area and you're listening, I want you to get back to me on something. If you're looking at amateur careers and you're getting folks ready to fight for you, do you put a little asterisk by the guys who have fought in Ohio, knowing that it's pretty much a pro division where they're not getting paid? I mean, does that translate well to other athletic commissions? Does an Ohio amateur career, knowing that they'll allow for pro stylings, does that make your job any easier or any harder as a matchmaker? Get back to me on Twitter at CageNationTV.com, on Facebook. Shoot me an email. I digress, though. Chris Kenny's amateur career is very similar to that of Marquis Johnson. So right now, as we're going down facts, Chris Kenny has essentially nullified any advantage that Marquis Johnson may have had thus far. They all fought in similar promotions. And I'm going to guess if you investigate the 6 degrees of separation, while they've never fought each other, and I don't believe have ever fought anyone who has fought them, I'm going to guess they're fighting in very similar circles. Chris, while you really can't predict the outcome of a pro fight based on an amateur career, you can identify trends and tendencies. So if Lance Armstrong is bicycling on an amateur level, we can still identify that during X lap of X round, he gets a power boost or something. I don't follow bicycling. I'm not sure if that's a good analogy. But you can identify like where he starts to wane, where he finds his apex. And based on that, we know that Chris Kenny's a finisher. He, having only lost 2 bouts, winning 8 of them. So he is an 80% win victory, or win ratio, win percentage. Out of all of those 10 fights, the judges have not had to intervene with a decision once. Chris Kenny, by hook or by crook, has either had his hand raised or he went out on a shield, but never once have the judges had any say in it. That is what leads to an exciting pro debut fight. Like, it is. It's exciting. The only advantage that Chris Kenny may have over Marquis Johnson is he has more title fight experience. But being that there is no title being contested, on paper, the bout is dead even. So, I mean, maybe it's going to play as an X factor, as a confidence thing. Be like, okay, well, I got title fight experience where he doesn't. Maybe I believe that my fights may have been a little more difficult than his. It doesn't appear that way. I say it again. Pennsylvania will not allow for a mismatch. Pennsylvania, in their debuts, whether it be pro or amateur, guys have stuff to prove. On paper, these guys are about dead even. They are finishers. All of these things, all of them, are pointing towards one thing: an excellent fight. I'm a little envious of Mr. Roblin that he's going to be able to be in attendance for that bout, and I'm not. Let's talk about keys to victory for Marquis Johnson. While Marquis Johnson is extremely well-versed in submissions, so is Chris Kenny. Marquis Johnson needs to anticipate Chris Kenny's ground game and be able to redirect that energy and implement his own strategy. So if Chris Kenny is starting to employ his gambit, Marquis Johnson needs to be able to redirect that strength and energy into an advantageous position for himself. Although he is a debuting pro, Johnson needs to remain confident that he has more fights, more experience, and follow his instincts where they are applicable. If his gut is telling him something, he needs to listen. Maybe not jump in both feet, but be aware. Have that cage presence of, okay, what is my gut telling me? Keys to victory for Kenny. He needs to have researched Marquis Johnson to be able to forecast how Johnson is setting up his chokes. Marquis Johnson is stopping fights with chokes, whether they be guillotine or rear naked chokes. Chris Kenny needs to know how those chokes are being set up. And he needs to avoid those dangerous positions while at the same time being on the offense. Both fighters have equally fast submissions, so Chris Kenny either needs to be ready to beat Marquis Johnson to the punch, get there first with a submission, or he needs to drag the fight outside of Johnson's comfort zone. Regardless, King of the Cage is putting on a fantastic, and I mean fantastic, fight. Another bout on the card, Lucas Kailing versus David White for the King of the Cage Amateur Heavyweight Championship. David White is the defending champion. David White earned the King of the Cage strap in the amateur division at King of the Cage Heavy Hands, where he defeated Caleb Harris. David White is a two-time King of the Cage veteran. Both of his King of the Cage bouts have been victories over Caleb Harris. So the first bout that David White had in King of the Cage, his debut for King of the Cage, was against Caleb Harris. And I think that might have even been his debut fight. And then he meets Caleb Harris again in the King of the Cage, and he wins the Amateur Heavyweight Championship. David White has title fight experience outside of King of the Cage. He scored technical knockout victory over Lance Moore just this past April. So, momentum and presence of mind mean a lot. And I like what David White has going for him going into this. I think he's got momentum swinging his way. He's got title fight experience. And he's dangerous. I mean, he is knocking guys out. He's putting them out. What essentially is a knockout? A knockout is hitting a man so hard that either the referee has to intervene for someone's safety or someone has been separated from consciousness. David White has the ability, nay, the talent, for separating guys from consciousness. But you know who else does? Lucas Kailing. Kailing only has one blemish on his record, and that was the last bout in King of the Cage, and so he certainly wants to avenge that loss. He wants to put that out of his mind. And what better way to do that than to challenge for a title? Other than losing his last fight, Lucas Kailing is a heavy-handed war machine. War machine! The man hits people so hard that they don't get up. All of his last fights ending in knockout. Again, in 1 minute or less. Let me put that in the most basic terms so we can wrap our heads around that. in less than 60 seconds. You can't make a bowl of ramen soup in less than 60 seconds. You can't get a Hot Pocket to be unfrozen in 60 seconds. And in 60 seconds, a bell has rung, Lucas Kailing starts the warpath, and then someone has been separated from consciousness. That is exactly what it is. Now, the dynamic of this fight is really simple. Two big men who have devastating knockout power. Okay? Knockout power. Oh, Lord. Okay, so the last big heavyweight fight that I remember for King of the Cage was Nathan Bam Bam Bryant versus Tony Lopez. Heavyweights on a regional level are making a comeback. They're still rare to find. It's still rare to see. But King of the Cage has got it. We have Lucas Kailing, David White, two men who just put the stamp on kids. Okay? In the sport of mixed martial arts, the sport, a knockout is a definitive win. And to do it in less than 60 seconds is amazing. It's a dynamic fight between two men who have devastating knockout power. They're about to meet in the middle of the cage. And did we forget, it's for a championship. Okay, the King of the Cage Amateur Heavyweight Championship. Let's think of who King of the Cage title holders were. Daniel D.C. Cormier. Paul the Headhunter Buentello. Diego Sanchez. All of them have gone under the UFC. This bout has huge implications for these guys. Even though it's an amateur title fight. Even though it's in the amateur division. This still has huge implications for the guys. Because one, heavyweights are in need. Two, King of the Cage is the door to get there. It is the trampoline to get onto the highest rung in the ladder. It is a title fight. And the odds are, okay, let's talk about statistics. Odds are that whether it be David White or Lucas Kailing, someone is going to lose consciousness by way of knockout. The numbers don't lie, friends. Performance numbers do not lie. If you have two men who are knockout artists, okay, especially so young in an amateur career, and they've proven that they can put men to sleep. Two men who are knockout artists, who have won most of their fights by knockout. Statistically, someone's going to sleep in this bout. Let's talk about the keys to victory for David White. Technique is going to serve him incredibly well in this fight. He needs to be aware of the danger in Lucas Kailing's hands without over-respecting them. He needs to be aware that Lucas Kailing can put him out, but he needs to not be so timid that he hurts his own offense. We've seen that way too much. He needs to respect his hands without over-respecting them. And I think of the bout between Chris Lieben and Josh Koscheck. Lieben, who had the knockout power, he was the brawler, over-respected Josh Koscheck's wrestling. And it was not the fight how he wanted to go. So David White needs to avoid that. He needs to know there's danger, but he needs to not over-respect them. David White also needs to be confident in his experience. David White is the defending champion going into this bout. He has the title fight experience where Lucas Kailing does not. He needs to know that, hey, he's the man. Kailing is coming to him. He needs to remain confident. He needs to hold on to his strategy. And he needs to not over-respect Lucas Kailing's hands. The keys to victory for Kailing. David White has similar knockout power. The strategy needs to be getting David White into positions where Lucas Kailing can unload his hands. He needs to remain loose. He needs to be in position where he's confident to throw his hands. So he needs to stay out of David White's range where he can knock him out, but yet at the same time be in a position where he can throw hands. David White also has submission skills, so it would benefit Lucas Kailing to remain standing unless his corner, his trainers, his team know something that I don't. If they know something that Lucas Kailing is actually a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wizard on the ground, then by all means engage. Stay where you're strong. Remember the art of war. You know, if he's stronger in an area, evade. If you're stronger, attack. That is what I feel are the keys to victory for both of those guys in that title fight. Remember, everyone, that King of the Cage short range happening at the Meadows Casino in Washington, Pennsylvania. Tickets still available right now at www.kingofthecage.com. These bouts that I'm talking about are going to be televised on MAV TV, but don't wait for TV. Do not wait for TV, friends. Go get your tickets, kingofthecage.com. They're coming to you by Ticketmaster. You need to be in attendance for here because I'm giving you guys a ton of great reasons to get out there and support regional mixed martial arts. Last fight we're going to talk about today. Ethan Hayes versus Justin Mullen. Two men who only have one loss on the amateur record. They're going to square off in the King of the cage to try to continue their winning ways. Ethan Hayes' last fight was a tough decision loss to Anthony the Genius Romero. And let's be honest, Romero is a stud who is on rising momentum. So for Ethan Hayes to survive a Romero onslaught, it's saying that Ethan Hayes has got guts and skill and heart, and he is a contender as well. Again, amateur careers are meant for what? Finding yourself out. Romero and guys who are fighting him and taking him that close to even go to a decision are on their way. For those reasons, I'm a really big fan of Ethan Hayes going into this fight. Now, before the bout with Romero, Hayes was on a tear. 4 fights, 1 decision, 3 submissions, and a TKO victory to get his career started. I would like to remind you again that Pennsylvania will not allow for mismatches, and this fight is almost identical as you can get. The stats, the win ratios, the loss ratios, quality of competition, it's almost identical. Justin Mullen is on a 3-fight win streak, the first round stoppage of Damian Rose, Sam Humphrey, and Mark McNulty. Both of these guys have been fighting in similar fight circles, and it's only a matter of time before they were going to come head to head. Whether it be in Ohio, whether it be in Tennessee, whether it be at King of the Cage in Pittsburgh, both of these guys were destined to come together. I'm a firm believer in iron sharpens iron, that the quality of guys you fight has a direct correlation to the guys you will fight in the future. So if you're fighting guys who are tough, you're fighting guys who are tougher, you are ultimately becoming better by the transitive property. Hayes has a King of the Cage victory over Seth Reese. Justin Mullen is making his King of the Cage debut. So both of these guys, they don't have a whole lot of KOTC experience, but they're getting there. When you think of all the great guys who have come from King of the Cage, it needs to be said that KOTC does not just let anybody in. They're not going to pull some bum off the street like Kawiki Gonzalez and say, hey, come fight for King of the Cage. We need anybody. No, they have their pick. And for these guys to be on a King of the Cage fight card is saying something huge about them. Let's talk about the keys to victory for Hayes. Hayes has the complete toolbox of victory methods. He needs to stay in his wheelhouse where he is confident. Not comfortable, confident. Comfortable makes you lazy. If you're confident you can get the victory by doing this, and your corner agrees with you, let's go with that. Let's keep his cardio tight, prepare to go the distance. Get ready for 3 rounds. But let's also be looking for finishes with the fight this close. Listening to your corner and hearing their perspective is an absolute must. When you have guys working with you in a fight camp, you have guys in your corner, they are seeing things that you cannot in the middle of a fight. When a fight is this close, you need to rely on your corner because they are there to help you. Keys to victory for Mullen. Confidence and momentum is on Mullen's side going into this fight. If the fight goes to the ground, Mullen needs to make certain that his strategy is being implemented. When the fight is standing, Mullen needs to pick his shots and not overextend himself to give Hayes an opportunity to knock him out. Complete methods of victory, ladies and gentlemen. They've both got the toolbox. They both can pull it out. If you'll notice that my entire preview of King of the Cage, I don't talk about who I think is going to win because a lot of the time it's too close. It's unfair to try to pick amateurs over each other. Pros, sure, absolutely. But the pro bout that we talked about today, I got nothing. Tickets available right now at www.kingofthecage.com. Tickets being fulfilled by Ticketmaster. The bout is going down at the Meadows Casino in Washington, Pennsylvania. Get in line, ladies and gentlemen. Word has it that Pittsburgh native Chris Humes Mitchell might be in action. We have conflicting reports right now of who is he fighting, who may he be fighting. We don't know, but we're going to try to find out, and we'll keep you posted. Next week on the Prizefight Podcast, we're breaking down Triangle Kickboxing Promotions Lightning Strikes 4, being held live at the Kerr Scott Building in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's my time, ladies and gentlemen. Happy 4th of July. Be careful with your fireworks. Enjoy your time with friends and family. And until next time, fights, Cameron, action.
Thank you for tuning in to the Cage Nation Prize Fight Podcast. All rights reserved. 2016 to 2017 Planet Aries Sports. The Prize Fight Podcast is part of the Cage Nation Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.cagenationtv.com.